When my sister was a senior in high school, she decided to take a hard, rigorous science class in order to show taking another AP class on her transcript. She was placed in the class of a teacher who, while well-meaning and interesting, did not adequately prepare the students for the difficult tests that they were taking, which were based off of the national exam they were expected to pass at the end of the year. One night, she ranted to me. "The class is interesting," she said, "and I learn a lot, but my main problem is that I don't do well in the exams." When I asked her why she thought that was, she sighed and shook her head. "He doesn't teach to the test." Even though she found the class interesting and was learning about the subject in a fun, thought-provoking way, she was still dissatisfied because her grade in the class was suffering as a result. In short, she was learning, but she wasn't satisfied because they weren't teaching the information predetermined to be important to the class in order to quote-unquote succeed. So let me ask you this. When did our mentality as a society change from learning for the sake of learning and as an outlet to better ourselves to instead memorizing useless information for the sake of a fat red markered letter scribbled on the top of a paper? When I say teaching to the test, what do I mean, and why is it bad? Well, Washington Post education reporter Jay Matthews claimed that, quote, "Teaching to the test simply means aligning classroom instruction and curriculum to standards, and that the practice is a good one that should be supported," close quote. However, many teachers rushed to tell Matthews that what he described was not the kind of teaching to the test that they and their colleagues were and still are worried about. They instead describe an environment in which nothing matters except for the score earned rather than the knowledge learned. The practice of teaching to the test began with the introduction of mass education, and while it was facilitated by the Industrial Revolution, many blame the No Child Left Behind Act for escalating teaching to the test from a problem into an epidemic. The law virtually transformed the concept of education, turning teaching and learning into a mere exercise in prepping students to test well. Ron Maggiano, a veteran teacher who's won countless awards for teaching, says this about why he retired early, and I quote, "I can no longer cooperate with a testing regime I believe is suffocating creativity and innovation in the classroom. We're not really educating our students anymore. We're merely teaching them to pass a test. This is wrong, period," close quote. The outcome of teaching to the test can also be summed up in the experiences of actress Alfre Woodard, who tells reporters that, quote, "My sister-in-law is left standing in front of her class with a pamphlet, teaching to the test because everyone must pass," close quote. Not only are teachers struggling having to teach to the test, but there are many problems with the acclaimed sprint and cover and standardized testing environment that we and our peers have been weaned on and raised to substantiate. This approach to education, with its focus on teaching rather than learning, has many problems in and of itself, described in 8 points by the Washington Post as conventional education and standardized testing is stifling creativity, punishing teachers, promoting cheating, ignoring the needs of individual students, failing to prep students for the future, inaccurately representing test anxiety, and only benefiting multi-million-dollar testing agencies. Even though we know that this process is inefficient for teachers and largely ineffective for their students, we continue with this system because in our minds we think, there's no other way. It's been done this way for so long, how can we change it now? If our education system is producing some successful people here and there, then what's the harm in keeping it the way that it is? The problem with this mindset is that the system can be made better. Kelly Gallagher commented in her article for Education Week that, quote, "While many states have raised their test scores over the past few years, we as a country continue to fall in international comparisons of academic achievement. How can this be? If we're getting quote-unquote better, why are we declining internationally?" Close quote. She answers this question with the research findings of Linda Darling Hammond of Stanford University, who studied high-achieving countries from around the world. The answer? And I quote, "Because their assessments demand critical thinking, their students are moving ahead. Because our assessments demand shallow thinking, our students are falling behind." Oscar Wilde writes that, quote, "Education is an admirable thing, but it is well to remember from time to time that nothing that is worth learning can be taught," close quote. In our flawed American school system, most of what is taught in classroom settings is forgotten, and much of what is remembered is irrelevant. I mean, when I ask what you learned from freshman biology, how many of you would only be able to remember the fact that the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell? In that case, with the standards of our current education system and the constraints on our ability to change the way we learn, what does the future hold for education? Will we continue to languish in our dated system, or will we innovate as humans are programmed to do? For the sake of my children, I can only hope and pray that we will learn to discard what we have always known and choose an innovative world where we can learn to change for the better.
Created using Powtoon.